podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Cardiff Central Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cardiff Central. As always, it's me, Harley, in the hot seat. I am joined by Dan. Dan, how are you feeling now we've finished the regular season?
Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed actually after whinging how long the run-in was for 6 months. I'm already missing rugby, but it is nice to have a bit of a break, I think.
Yeah, it feels like this week, other than the announcement on Monday, which I'm sure we'll get into later, it feels quite flat not having anything to get revved up for.
Yeah,
Maybe we need the EDC to start now. Just get us through the summer.
could do that. Or some sign-ins. No, hint, Cardiff Rugby. A couple of sign-ins still to go.
No. Like they'll announce more whilst we're on air. So very like bit of news. Very like news-wise, we've got a load out and a load in. So do you want to do the senior side leavers or the rags incoming first?
We'll start with the levers. There wasn't a huge amount, I don't think, that we didn't know about in there. That obviously I think probably the big thing is who it didn't include in terms of there was no sign of Ray Lilo in it, and there was no sign of him receiving any sort of award or anything at the official club awards on the weekend, where they honoured a few players who were heading out the door. The suggestion is he has signed a new 1-year deal, which is, I think, a smart move for the club to keep that experience around, and somebody, I think, at Ray, who probably isn't going to be on huge money at this point of his career and isn't expecting to play every week. He's going to still be Mr. Dependable when called on. But the list that they did announce, Arwell Robson is heading off to Chambry in the National. I think we knew that already. Matt Aubrey is confirmed as leaving. Didn't really see a huge amount of him, injuries and stuff. Yeah, probably not the end of the world, that. The two Dragons loans lads, Max Clark and Gonzalo Bertranu, whether particularly Bertranu is a goodbye for now or not remains to be seen, but they're heading back. We knew about Kieran Parker retiring, Shane Lewis Hughes going to the Dragons, Owen Lane heading for Valence Romans, I think it was, in the Pro D.
Something like that, yeah.
Obviously the bigger names as well, Thomas off to Gloucester, and Rhys Carey back to Saracens, Ellis and Josh retiring. I think probably the three that we half knew but we're waiting for confirmation on, Lopeti Tamani is heading out, and from what I understand, his sort of 30-minute cameo on Saturday was a bit of popping him in the shop window because he hasn't got anywhere signed up yet, but I think the family are heading back to Australia. Alid Summerhill, we half knew from his putting his highlights out, but I don't think he's got anything sorted yet, so he would be an asset to most clubs, I think, if they were to pick him up. And then the big one was the confirmation that Willis Alaholo is actually leaving this time after a sort of willy-wonty summer last summer. But what a top bloke, top player. I think he's sort of run out of superlatives for the legend he is as a player and a man. But sad to see him go. I think the family are heading back to New Zealand, so hopefully, at the very least, he picks up something in the provincial competition at the end of the summer, and maybe works his way into a wider Super Rugby squad, because you've got to think that experience would be good for some of the younger New Zealand centres coming through. But yeah, sad to see him go, but wish him all the best.
And if he did, yeah, absolutely, all the best, Willis. But if he doesn't make Super Rugby, I reckon Dallas Jackals could do with some magic in the centres.
Yeah, nice little trip out to America for the girls. I'm sure they'll enjoy a couple of months out there.
A couple of nice barbecues out in Texas. Yeah. So of that list, who do you think we're going to miss most this season? I mean, I feel it's a bit harsh to single out any one person. Yeah,
I think obviously, like, experience-wise, you look at Turnbull and Jenkins, but I think in terms of playing-wise, Thomas Williams is the obvious answer there. Like, we'll get on to Ellis Bevan a bit later after some of his news this week, but for whoever comes in, whether it's Bevan or Ali Davis or somebody from South Africa, I don't know if I'd go as far to say as Thomas is a generational talent as such, but he's an elite level player, and as he hasn't always had the recognition with Wales on that front. But I think particularly over the last 12 months, he's starting like proper nailed down that first choice international spot now. I think he is more than in contention to tour with the Lions next year if he has a good season again next season with Gloucester and Wales. So he's a huge miss, but maybe as much of a miss, I think, is probably Reece Carey. He's our top scorer this season. He's that carrying ability. Yeah, his scrummaging, it's not as weak as it once was, and but he's not top level scrummager, but just that work around the park, how we use him as effectively our main ball carrier, how he can open up other players then carrying in the wider channels, and then the way we use him off the top of lineouts and stuff to score when we're in the red zone. That's going to be a big miss next season, not having that go-to option to get us over the try line. So I think those two in particular stand out as massive losses for me.
I think as well as Tamani, I know he hasn't played that much this season for injuries or whatever, but again, a very good, reliable source of go forward.
Yeah, somebody asked me if he'd been a success or not, and I was finding it quite difficult to answer to a degree. I think the answer is he's not been a massive success and stuff because of the injuries, but he's not been not a success either. When he's played, he's been really important for us, actually. But yeah, just as I said, just hasn't played enough this season quite.
For me, I feel like he's not quite in the sort of, in terms of non-Welsh qualified signings, he's not up there with the Lilos, the Ollie Robinsons, the Nick Williams. But I would say he's in the sort of like the what's the name? The American lot 8 we signed to sort of take pressure off.
Yeah, he's not Cam Dolan
Sam Manoa.
He's not Sam. Definitely not Sam Manoa. The other player, I always thought Manoa Vosawai wasn't quite as good as he could have been, as well as another one. But
yeah, it's not one of
No, he's. I've always felt that he's been committed to it, and that the injuries. It's not like he's sort of half-assed it with the injuries. He has legitimately been injured, and he's played on at times when he's obviously been carrying knocks. He's in the latter stages of a very physical career, been there and done it at the highest level. But yeah, I think it's probably right to see him move on. But it was a good move at the time to bring him in, and particularly in that first season where he played a lot at second row, I think it stabilised our scrum in particular, to not take it to the top of the league, but it went from being a liability to being something which we were just able to deal with.
Yeah. Funny to say about our scrum and not being top of the league. We are actually we're second in the league behind the Lions in terms of scrum.
What's that based on?
So give me two if you fill in. I'll get the things up. But I think it's mostly about scrum win percentage. So just keeping the ball secure.
I would say, because I think it's probably weighted highly towards that. To my mind, the top should be the team that wins the most scrum penalties, probably. I know the URC stats, the way they the weightings they give to certain elements, like when they do the defensive rankings, is not always agreed with by the clubs. For example, at one point a couple of years ago, I remember.
Well, we're top on that.
Are we? Have we won the most scrum penalties?
Oh no, we're top on defense as well.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
we are top on defense because we've made the most tackles and the most turnovers.
That's the thing. A couple of years ago, we were like, we made the most turnovers. We hadn't made many tackles because we just hadn't defended a huge amount, and our ranking was quite low because of it. And then I wrote something about saying the defense was struggling based on those stats, and the club were not too happy because according to their stats, they were quite high, like quite a lot higher up because of the the different algorithm that they use to decipher the rankings.
Yeah, so the three they only put 3 stats on their team page. So it's scrums won or lost, in which we're 6 with 105. Scrum percentage, which is I think just the heaviest weighted one, where scrums won percentage with 95% success on the scrum, and then we're 7th on scrum penalties, won with 24.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Putting us bang mid-table for scrum penalties one sounds about right to me. And I think that's where our scrum is, like, in terms of it used to be bottom quarter, and now it's sort of bang in the middle. It's not going to be pushed off too easily, but it's not going to turn up destroying lads either.
Yeah. So like just random. This is the example. So the Ospreys, who you definitely would put way up higher, they're 12th because their scrum win percentage is in 15th because they've actually only got 86% win on the own
Yeah,
ball.
yeah, and
But they're second for scrum penalties, won with 34, and they've won 108 scrums in third. They've put one loss, but they don't actually give you two numbers, which
yeah,
it's my
that doesn't. I mean, the Ospreys have pulled our scrum apart twice. Not as much on Saturday. We'll get on to Judgment Day in a bit, but
yeah.
certainly at Bridgend, they gave us a right good see into on that bog. So.
Yeah. So DHL Stormers, who would be by your definition the best scrum, they have 49 scrum penalties. So that's 50. That's 15 more than the Ospreys won.
Yeah, that's
right. But they've only won 99 scrums and had 88% win success. It's like,
yeah.
yeah.
I think they need to go back to the drawing board on their stats there.
Yeah, I think as well. Yeah, I think for me, like the big thing for defense has got to be I think the biggest thing for your defense has got to be points conceded.
Yeah,
I think if you concede fewer points, you're probably a good defense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's mad. Yeah. So speaking of Judgment Day, so just quickly going to talk about the fan reaction, then we'll give our own view. So I'll put out the usual 3-word thoughts. So from Twitter, friend of the pod, Andrew Ford, puts decent effort, fellas. Big T, Tony, he's put on to next year. I'll allow on to as one word. I'm not Rob Pugh says, what forward pass? Yeah, for that one try. Osprey's better side by Drew Shepherd. I think that's
it's fair enough.
Fair. Decent despite our WRU from Rob Hill. Then onto the book of the face app. So you've got losing bonus point by Dan Minty and then Andrew Buhagia, who again I keep messing it. I'm sorry, you need to message me and tell me how to pronounce your surname because I'm messing up every time. Some season up again, fair. Then on sort of like when we post it onto the Cardiff rugby fan page, a lot of people need to see it's 3-word thoughts. I don't want the essays. But yeah, so a lot of things are forward wins games from Adrian Dunleavy, puts a big essay. Good crop. That's it. Then other ones are best team lost by Andrew Gardner. Scrums need a change by Michelle Clay. Well, I've just said actually it's not often we have that issue in the scrum. So I'll say future looks bright by Rob Hackman. Ben Thomas outstanding. Charlie Hunt. Nigel Thomas, we still lost. Martin Priest said really good game. I agree with that. Matt Pox says WR you screwed over. Don't know who they got screwed over by us or we got screwed over by them. I'm not
they screwed over everyone.
Christopher Nunn did acknowledge the fact that he wrote an essay that was much longer than 3 words, so thank you for that. But yeah, so those are the other ones. And then there's a couple of other things. And yeah, if it's long, if I haven't read out your comments because it's longer than 3 words, and and it ends the rules.
I think they're pretty. They sum up the mood pretty well, probably at full time there. It was a good game, just on a general level. I thought, like, if you're a neutral, you probably really enjoyed that one. The only one I'd probably disagree with is that the better team lost. I thought the Ospreys deserved it on the day. Ultimately, as we probably played the nicer rugby, which is maybe what they mean. I thought we moved the ball around better and we scored the nicer tries generally. But you just cannot let the Ospreys have any sort of set piece in against you because they will just punish you, and that's what happened in the end. Their scrum got on top. They used them all second half quite well. A couple of yellow cards. Red card didn't particularly matter so much, but just generally I thought it did sum up the season quite well for Cardiff. We played nice rugby. The young lads did really well. A couple of standout performances from them. We did what we thought we were going to do, push into the sort of fringe 15-meter channels and really try and stretch the Ospreys. The tries we scored were really nice. The Cabango try is a really great try. The Brady try on half times really well worked as well. And then piece of Ben Thomas magic right at the end, who was fantastic on the day. The best I think we've seen him play for Cardiff, really. Playing at 10 or 12, and they'll talk about what his best position is, but ultimately I think when he plays 12 for Cardiff, he pretty much plays 10 as well. There was a lot of time in the first half where he slotted into first receiver and is making decisions there. So no, they played really well. His link up with De Beer we knew was good, but I thought what was particularly good from Thomas was his link up with Winnett then on the outside channel as well. Winnett came into the line really well. It's his pass that puts Evan Lloyd away for the Grady try on halftime, which is a beautiful missed pass that just lets Lloyd run that outside arc in line and get his hands free. The Lloyd as well, I thought was really good. His best performance in the Cardiff jersey so far. Line out was excellent against a good set piece team, and going up against Derry Lake, who probably is the best hooker in Wales still, I think, just about. He didn't look out of place at all. He didn't look like somebody who's still only recently converted to hooker, really. So that's positive for him and for Cardiff and for Wales. Yeah, I thought it was a good performance, and it just showed again though that we're close, but we're lacking in certain areas still, set piece and defensive discipline a little bit. We do need an out and out seven. Botham's a great player, and where Ruben Morgan Williams is going through and Botham scrags him and wins a turnover is a great piece of play. But I think he's much better when he's freed from the open side duties, and we bring in an out and out Jackal there, and Botham can, he can tackle Jackal, pop up where he wants in the defensive line, just to his heart content, really. So yeah, things to take away for Sherratt over the summer. But overall, that's a solid 8 out of 10. Like Cardiff there, and 2 more losing bonus points to add to the column, just for a laugh, really.
Yeah, I've got to finish. That game had every. I said on Wrap that that game summed up our season. Scored a wonderful try where the try scorer gets injured very shortly afterwards. There was a thick red card because it was definitely a red. It was just a bit thick and lazy. Yeah. Sorry, Seb. I'm sure you know. I'm sure you know that. That's not really your finest moment this season. And then we got 2 losing bonus points. And then you might have argued that when Luke Davis gets yellow carded, you could make an argument saying maybe he should have at least looked at the possibility of a penalty try there, because you can see they dive on Ray Lilo's arm as he's about to place the ball.
Yeah,
but I do feel like Ospreys, on the balance of things, probably deserve to win that game. So I'm not going to play. It was a bit like with the Zebra game that if we'd won the draw, if we'd won that, I'd have felt like we'd cheated them a bit.
Yeah, that's fair, and I do think it does sum up the season, but it also like we'll review the season a bit more in depth in next week or in the coming weeks. But I think if you reviewed that performance on Saturday versus the game against Zebra early on or the home game against Benetton, we're a much better side now than we were then. I mean, if we had played those games in reverse order, we'd have been battered by the Ospreys first up in the start of the season. But I think we'd have cruised past a Zebra or a Benetton even at home on Saturday. There, teams who, Benetton is a bit more our style of play, isn't as upfront physical as some teams are. I think we'd have. Maybe cruised past is over exaggerating it slightly, but if we played like that against Benetton, I'd have backed us to win at home on the day. So that is where the measure of success of this season is going to come from. Is, are we a better team now than the start of the year? And as individuals, yes, definitely, and as a team, particularly when we attack like that, we'd be missing it for a few weeks. But when our attack does click in that manner, then we are a much better rugby team now and at the start of the year. So with a proper pre-season coming up, who knows what next season might bring.
I think about that. I said so. A couple of boys in the Wrap, and I quite agree. We reckon that was the best Welsh derby for many years. What do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, certainly involving Cardiff, I tend not to retain much about the Welsh derbies, but I can't think of many better involving Cardiff in the last couple of years. With the Scarlets, we've tended to either batter them or they've battered us, is how it's gone recently. And the games against the Dragons are never massively competitive these days. Or if they are close, it's because they've been turgid affairs rather than because they've been entertaining. So No, I have to say I look forward to our games against the Ospreys more than most of the others. Like maybe we've got a greater rivalry against Dragons because they're near neighbours, or Scarlets because there's the history there. But I think just on sort of performance in the post 2003 era, and there's an element to the Cardiff Swansea thing there as well. That our games against the Ospreys are the ones that are certainly the most competitive, and that I think bring the best out of both teams, because it is such a clash of styles there. Whereas it's a little bit less of that against the other two sides. But yeah, from a tactical perspective, they are very interesting. And when both sides are playing well, you can produce a game like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for clash of styles, I thought, a lot of players stood up. Particularly on like the Osprey side, I thought Dean Durrati again, excellent. Boom Williams, I still think is the second best. He was probably the second best 9 this season after Thomas when Thomas was fit. But we'll go on to those. Yeah, we can sleep into those when we talk about Wales squad. But before we go for the Wales squad, it's my pleasure to announce that the votes have been counted and verified. We have the Cardiff Rugby Awards come up, and they have been sponsored by Manscaped, who have very kindly given all of us as the Rat family some nice gear, including the Manscaped Manscaped Performance Package 5 Ultra, and some very, very nice bits of kit. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to use them yet, so I'll give you more of a review on them there. But the blurb that they've sent us is it's smooth sack summer. It's officially upon us. When you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're groomed from pubes to bum. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped, you can make your season your smoothest yet. The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep your boys downstairs cool or looking hot. Join 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer, where you can get 20% off plus free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use the code RugbyBalls. So RUGBYBALLS. And that's 20% off, and you get free shipping. So have a look. I'm very excited. I think I'm going to be using this to get the Weed Whacker, which is the nose hair trimmer, because it's the only place where hair seems to grow on me, because I can't do facial hair. It's just all nasal. I'm sorry for that horrid image, people, but that's a bit of the peek behind the curtain.
That whole blurb just creates lots of images. But that's a good offer if people want to get on it. It's certainly one to jump on if you've been thinking about it for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. So obviously James from the Ospreys pod and Carwyn from the Scarlets and Pod Cymru, they've both been very exciting and found it really easy to use. Hugh again, Catboy from Scarlets Fever, he got a set via Pirate Rugby, and they've been flogging that because they've enjoyed it very well. I've seen all the kit. It's lovely, really sturdy built, water resistant, so you can take it in the shower. They say taking it down the beach. I personally I wouldn't go and start trimming my armpits in the middle of the sea, but each their own. Like so you can tell in skin tone. Make sure you can actually see what you're doing down there. No nick technology, which sort of just reduces the so you're don't have to feel so trepidatious to when you're dealing with your lads. Anyway, so yes, thank you very much for Manscaped for providing us that kit. That once again, the offer code is RugbyBalls for your 20% off and free shipping. So on to the awards. So I'm only going to go for the winners. So the polls went out on Twitter 2 weeks ago. So I'm just going to go for the winner. I'm going to give you the vote share as well, so you can see how contentious it is. So starting off with young player of the year, or breakthrough player, whichever way we phrase it, I can't remember now. I think in surprise to absolutely nobody, this was Josh Turnbull. No, it was Cam Winnett who got 72% of the votes. So congratulations, Cam. I have nothing to give you. If you get in contact, I'll get you I'll buy you some Manscaped merch or something. I don't know.
You can have a Manscaped code for Rugby Balls for 20%.
There we go, sorted. Then, so best team performance. So this was a little bit closer, but the one that came out on top was the Boxing Day game against the Dragons, which took 36% of the votes, which is a bit like how a Tory party will win in the election. how Tory Party would win an election. I don't think it'll win this one. The club's unsung hero, despite what I thought was excellent suggestion of Scott Andrews, this has gone to our wonderful captain Liam Belcher with 64% of the vote. Congratulations, Belcher, for that. Player of the year. Yeah, player of the year, signing of the season. Both gone to Tinas De Beer. And basically just hands down. Going from two absolute excellent tens in Priestland and Jared, going down to thinking, oh shit, we're gonna have to start an 18-year-old. Tina's coming in as proper saved her asses this season. And I know I've complained about your kicking, place kicking. Please don't take it personally. I just like goal kickers. But thank you, because your play and running the game has been excellent, and the way you've implemented the kicking game strategy has actually been a big part of why we've been so good this season. So thank you, Tinas. Try of the season is a bit of a 50-50. So we've got two tries on 34% of the vote, so they both garnered a third of the vote each. We've got Kieran Azarati versus the Dragons and Thomas Young versus Quins. Now, Dan, I'll leave this decision to you. Do you want to just pick one of those two now and give that try of the season, or do we want to throw in one of the tries from Judgment Day and we put it out to vote again?
No, I'm going to pick it because I enjoy having the power. And although the tries on Judgment Day were good, I don't think any of them were quite as good as Kieran Azarati scoring from 75 metres out, going past 8 Dragons defenders and scoring. And because Thomas Young won the official club one as well, Azza's try deserves some recognition. So I'm gonna give it to Azza against the Dragons.
There you go. Congratulations, Kieran Maserati, for your try against the Dragons on Boxing Day. I mean, I feel like try of the season should come from performance of the season as well. So that
that's
works.
true.
So
that's good.
With 35% of the vote, with Dan's extra vote, you are, that is your try of the thing. Congratulations to all our winners. Again, if any of the players want to get in touch and want something, I'm sure we'll come up with some prize or another. It might just be a pint in the clubhouse next time we see you, depending on how close to the end of how close to payday it is.
As long as I remember my CAC club card, so I can get the discount as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm going to be signing up for that next season anyway. As I don't believe we discussed. Did we discuss last week that fixtures have been released?
No, that's true. Actually, it was the day after, I think, wasn't it? After our recording day that they came out. We got two things to look forward to for next season now, because the Rags have announced their signings and the fixtures have come out. Which one? What do you want to start with? Do you want to do fixtures quickly first?
Should we do the Rags?
Do
the Rags signings, and then we'll have a quick go through fixtures, and we'll have a proper deep dive closer to the time, I think.
Yeah. We let me just pull it up as I haven't got it ready. So the Rags confirmed 8 new signings for the semi-professional squad for the start of 24-25 in Super Rugby Cymru. Quite forward heavy, 7 forwards, only 1 new back. So there's Mark Thomas, loosehead, who has had a random 12 months. He's been with the club for the last 2 years. Suddenly retired in September, popped up playing for his home club at Bilthwells, then came back to the Premiership on permit for Pontypool and is now back playing for the Rags next season. So ultra experienced guy. I think the list of clubs he's played for is longer than my arm, but mostly Ospreys, Worcester, Harlequins for a bit as well. Then another loose head is Jared Williams, who played for the Cardiff age grade team pre-COVID, went to Exeter Uni and has won 2 Buck Super Rugby titles and come second this year with them. Coming back from university next season, going to play semi-professional for the Blue and Black. So looks like a pretty good pickup. I've seen glimpses of him playing for Exeter, and he looks like a solid option. A hooker then, Gavin Parry is somebody we know well, played for the age grade sides over the last couple of years. Started the season with the Rags and was with the academy briefly, but then left the academy and signed for Pontypridd. He randomly was Scottish qualified then, so won 2 caps for Scotland under 20 in the Six Nations, and is currently playing for Watsonians in their Super Series, which their Super Rugby Cymru, I suppose, is probably the comparison there. So he'll be back in Cardiff, and the other hooker is Charlie Manship, who was also with the age grade sides over the last couple of years, but is now coming into the semi-professional squad. At tight head, Tom Harper is from Pontypridd. He was at Swansea University for a couple of years pre-COVID, and then played for Mountain Ash and Ponty. He was on permit with us against Llandovery in the semi-final a couple of weeks ago, and looks a big old unit at tight head, which is good to add to the team. In the back row, Benji Williams is another Ely boy coming in. He was played age grade with us, went to the Ospreys for a year in their academy, played for Swansea University in Bucks Super Rugby, but then chose to leave their academy to come and play for Cardiff Met. Was in the Bucks Super Rugby team of the year last year while at Cardiff Met. And then Aled Ward was in our academy a good couple of years ago. Left to go to Cardiff Met. He then, when he graduated university, he went to Hartbury in the English Championship and has been at Pontypridd the last 2 years. So good options, both of them. I think Benji's more of an out and out 8. So we'll probably slot in where Morgan Allen was alongside Evan Rees with the academy from the academy as the 8 options, and then Aled Ward is 6/7, so can probably take the sort of Craig Hudd versatile role where Hud's going to probably be covering second row a bit more next season. And then the back signing is probably the most surprise one of all the new signings. It's Josh Thomas, who people may remember from playing for the Ospreys quite regularly for a couple of years when he was younger. I think he kicked the winner against like Leicester or something like that in quite a big game. He's been at Newcastle Leinster, is it?
Wasn't it that Leinster away game?
It could well have been, yes.
I think
Something like that. But he's been at Newcastle the last 2 years. Hasn't had a huge amount of game time there, particularly this season. But from what I understand, he's going to train full time with the first team over pre-season. He's only 23 still. Will play at 10, but can cover 15 as well. So could be a good option for if we're bringing Harry Wild in more regularly, and having a bit of experience like Thomas at 15 to sort of talk him through games would be good. But if he impresses pre-season, there's no reason why he can't go and push the likes of Sheedy and Tinas as well in the fly half ranks. So overall, some really good pickups there, along with the academy lads. So there'll be plenty more of them next season in the Rags. I think there's now probably 21, 22 semi-pros on the books, and then a good 15 or so senior academy players. Not all of them will play regularly for the Rags. Some will play Buck Super Rugby or might even be involved in the first team a bit more. But yeah, Rags squad is looking a world away now than it was this time last year.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's nice to know that this is sort of building. It's promising to see that they're all signings that definitely. So I know I was talking with Cohen and Yestin. Both Cohen's from the Welsh pod, because they discussed this news on there, and it's nice that the Rags are signing the exact sort of players that the Super Rugby Cymru's meant for. It's that all youngish developing players who maybe didn't quite make it through one way or another, and it's a chance to get back into the system. Yeah, so 100%. That's quite promising. So, as I said, the URC have announced their fixtures, which is incredibly handy for those of us who are still deciding whether or not they were buying season tickets or not. I don't know whether it necessarily puts you off or puts you against. For me, one of the promising things is there's 4 Friday night home games, which for me, having to travel back to Devon currently, having a Friday night game is great, because I can get away with leaving a bit work a little bit later, and I go to the game and then drive home. Whereas I feel like sometimes going for like a Saturday midday, I lose my day, and weekends are a bit precious with my daughter at the moment, so that's promising. I know other people dislike them. Interesting thing. So once again, with the lion's share of our home games in the first half of the season. So we've actually got 6 home games in the first 9 rounds, including 5 in the first 7. Admittedly, that first 7 takes us past the autumn international, so make what you will there. And then we end the season with the 2 easiest fixtures you could possibly have: Stormers and Bulls in South Africa. So, Dan, what do you make of this fixture list in terms of Cardiff?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of random ones, like going to South Africa in the last 2 weeks is going to be fun. Also playing the Scarlets twice in 3 rounds right at the start of the season. I think we go away to them in round 2 and then host them in round 4, I think it is.
Yep.
So that's round. I'm not quite sure what's happened there. But all in all, I think it works quite well. It's quite similar to this season as well, in the sense that it on paper at least, it's an easier first half of the season before a more difficult second half of the season. I can't remember exactly what it was, but Russ Petty on Twitter, if anyone follows him, does a lot of data and stat stuff. I think the average league finish position of our opponents in the first half of the season was 11th this season, and then it was 8th in the second half of the season, or something around there. So with the home games to go with that as well, gives us a great chance to hit the ground running. Zebra home first up. If you bag a win there, going into playing the Scarlets twice, Welsh derbies, anything can happen. Hosting some South Africans in that run as well. There's opportunities there for a couple of statement wins before the Six Nations, really, I suppose, is where you would count the sort of end of that first block, because it'll go, even though the Autumn International's there, it'll go pretty much straight through to the end of Jan. And then it gets more difficult. I think it's both Irish teams away during the Six Nations, Connacht and Leinster on the fallow weeks. Got to play, I think is it the Sharks home and the Lions home are either side of the Six Nations as well, where we probably unlikely to have our internationals there, which is a particularly that Lions game. You kind of think, oh, that's something we might have fancied.
That's a sticky one.
Yeah, so that might be a tough one. But if we can, if you can bag a couple of wins in those first couple of rounds up to Dragons on Boxing Day. See how we get on against the Ospreys on New Year's Day, but it's always tough there because the weather's always dreadful and they just sort of bully us off the park on New Year's Day, it feels like. But if
is it cap, so
that
might help a little
might
bit,
help a little
even
bit.
though it's not nothing.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely a kind fixture list for Cardiff. If you choose your fixtures, you play Zebra home every week. But if you choose your fixtures within the confines of what is actually the format of the league, I don't think it would be too far off what we've ended up with, probably. So we'll have a look at it closer to the time and see who recruits well over the summer. But I suspect there would have been a few Rice Miles when they saw the fixture list a cap when it came in.
Because you mentioned that first block, so if we go up to New Year's Day, so I said, as we've alluded to, we're home to Zebra, then we're away to Scarlets, then we host Glasgow Warriors before hosting Scarlets in the return. Edinburgh away, then we host Ulster, then it's Dragon, then we've got the Autumn International windows, then we host Dragons, and basically it's almost back-to-back games of Dragons, so we play them on the 30th of November, then Boxing Day. So we've got the European block in between there. So it's going to be interesting because you've got them, and then we've got the Cardiff RC Newport derbies as well, either side of the Boxing Day game, for those of us who want to watch them. And then and we're hosting Ospreys. Now, I know our form's not been great, and we seem to, I don't know why we just got a mental block against Scarlets, but looking at that, ideally, we're probably looking at seven, maybe 8 wins. We need, just looking at the back of the thing, to.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. The key will just be building momentum, I think. If you beat Zebra on that first one, play quite well and roll, then as the games go along, you look at Glasgow home. Was it Munster home in there as well? Was that later?
Yeah, Munster home is the last round before we do our South African tour.
Oh, okay, so Ulster home then in that first block. Glasgow home, Ulster home, Scarlets home. Those are games which, on our day, we can win those ones. We pushed Glasgow away at the end of this season. We pushed Ulster away at the end of this season. I maintain that without the Ellis Jenkins red card, we beat the Scarlets at home this season as well. So, if those games we target as turning losing bonus points into wins, you get 4 wins there. Edinburgh away is a bit of a free hit. Scarlets away to a degree as well. We can keep our winning run up against the Dragons. Yeah, there's, especially if you get 2 kindish European fixtures as well against, I don't know, a French side who's not particularly interested in Newcastle or something like that in the Challenge Cup, then you've got a chance to real build some momentum through to that, peak, and then hopefully for that Ospreys New Year's Day game. And if we're anywhere sort of half competitive then through the end of the season, or those games are going to be tough, going to Connacht, going to Leinster, going to South Africa. But if as the Ospreys have shown this season, really, if you ride that wave of confidence and feel like you can win and find a way to win, to nick Toby Booth's tagline, then anything can happen in that run-in. It is, once injuries start hitting teams, if you avoid that, then there's points out there to be gained. And with it being a top 8, and there's a group of teams that are never particularly competitive, like Dragons and Zebra and stuff, and usually one South African is randomly dreadful for the whole season for no apparent reason. So yeah, I think they'd be pretty happy, and it definitely gives us an opportunity to be competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say it's like I'd rather did a different team. Like if you could swap the Glasgow, like I know Ulster at home would be a hard fixture, but I'd rather that first round of the season Zebra when we're losing our international, the week when typically our internationals get pulled up. But
yeah, Ulster will be
that's
quite
by
a
the
new
by.
team next year as well, new coach and a couple of new players in key positions. But yeah, I don't think. I think the Zebra one, there'll be a bit of pressure on that, I think, in that first game of the season to not only win, but win quite comfortably, probably. But if they do that, and on our plastic pitch and on a nice day, we're certainly capable of putting Zebra away, then that'll be a great start to the season to kick on with.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, so I think as the blue and black jersey is put away for the summer, it's time to think about the red one. Or green or black or teal, whatever random colour they're going to end up throwing for the what will probably be on the Reds for the Reds game. And would this game fall under the new colourblind rules for the South Africa game?
I don't really know what they are, to be honest. But you can't play red and green against each other. Is that what it is?
Yes, basically, yes. All there is. So like one team would have to use an alternate, which is why I think Wales very helpfully had an alternate kit of green in the last few years.
Yeah, I don't know actually, because this is pre-July, isn't it? Which is it's usually the end of June. They bring new stuff in, but to be honest, I don't know why they've put a thing saying it has to be done by a certain date. If it's causing people problems, why not just change it straight away? It can't be that harsh.
I think the problem at the moment is, very helpfully, I said, Ireland's kit is just a very pale green, and then their alternate kit is just a very dark. It's almost a dark green, and then Wales have gone from red to green, so it's a bit of a pain that way. They should just do what they did back in when it was black and white TV, and they just have to have different coloured shorts.
Yeah.
But that's by the by. Anyway, so we have a Wales squad announcement. I had quite a few bits of rants about this on Rap, so please feel free to listen out to get my full things. Dan, do you want to kick us off with your feelings?
Weird squad. Just generally, to be honest, like not in terms of like there are some quite like debatable player selections, but just in terms of like the balance of the squad is really weird. I know that there's issues around the South Africa games out to the window, so you can't pick the England and the French-based players. Then there's if the Ospreys do manage to get to the final, they're going to be unavailable as well. So there's lots of different things to keep in mind, but he's picked 4 hookers, 5 tight heads, 3 recognised full backs, really, with a couple of more than able to cover there. And then like 110 and just 5 out and out back rowers and 3 loose heads. And you sort of like, what's he thinking here? It's not like a training thing, because you got if that full squad is there, you've got 5 tight heads against 3 loose heads. So 5 tight heads are twiddling their thumbs while you're doing scrum practice. So yeah, that was odd. And that leads into then the players who have missed out, because there's a few players who I think will be desperately disappointed. Obviously Morgan Morris again. Ruben Morgan-Williams, who you said earlier, would have fancied it. Johan Lloyd's probably quite disappointed that he hasn't got a slot in there. From a Cardiff point of view, I think James Botham will be disappointed not to be in there. I put Theo Cabango in there. Obviously, we don't know exactly how bad his injury is at the moment. Oh,
There were some comments about that, but I'll get on to them once you finish.
But yeah, I think generally there is a making of a 23 in there, particularly looking at the Australia game, or the 2 tests against Australia. There is possibility for an exciting 23 to emerge from the selection. From a Cardiff point of view, great Ben Thomas is in there, thoroughly deserved. Hopefully he'll get a real chance to show what he can do. It looks like the 22 jersey is probably going to be his pretty much this summer, as a 10, a 12, and a 15. But he looks like, to me, he's gone as the second choice 10, as well as battling for the 12 jersey. I think Ellis Bevan is a surprise. It's fair to say. I didn't have him even in my done a little piece for the blog of players in contention. I didn't include him in that. Not to say that he hasn't had a good season as such, but I just thought that he was probably 5th on my list of 9s. In that Thomas, if he was fit, is up there. Then Gareth Davies and Kieran Hardy are already there. And then if Thomas didn't make it, then Ruben Morgan-Williams, to me, was the obvious next choice 9. I think Bevan has had a good season. He probably doesn't get many of the plaudits, a little bit because he's in Thomas's shadow, which is going to be hard to break out from. He's not Thomas. Not many players are. This is the truth of the matter. But he's got a very good pass from the base. His left foot kicking game offers something a bit different. He's quite a physical bloke. I thought there was a little moment at the end of the first half against the Ospreys on the weekend where he just had a little snipe from the base of the ruck, goes under Huser, and then gets an offload away for Alan Lawrence to give us some go forward from nothing. I'd like to see a lot more of that from him. I'd like to see him back himself a bit more, then challenge around the fringes of the ruck, look to bring forwards off him that way, look to use his own level of physicality, because he is, he's a pretty decent sized bloke. He'll knock a few lads out the way, certainly, if they're not expecting it. And obviously the knock on then is that it keeps fringe defenses a bit honest and creates some space out wide. So I don't think he's undeserving of it as such. I just fancied there was maybe more deserving 9s than him. But the other Cardiff players relatively expected. Doma and Azza, Evan Lloyd back in there. I think it's good for him to have a bit of continuity there. Mac Martin is like I wouldn't have dropped him for Morgan Morris. If Morgan Morris was in there, I'd have dropped one of the tight heads and just added an extra back rower. Personally, I think Mac is going to benefit a lot as well from still being in and around the squad. Mason Grady, no brainer. Cam Winnett, a no brainer. And then Jacob Beetham gets in as well, who is in the shadow of Winnett a little bit now, probably. But is. Yeah, I think he's going to be a player that Gatland's going to like as a physical guy, good kicker out of hand and off the tee, good defensive positioning, particularly. So overall, yeah, it's an oddly built squad. A 23 can be salvaged from it, but yeah, I think just to touch on Morris, as he is the main talking point. I mentioned last week on the pod, I think I said, where he has been a YouTube player for me at times in the last 2 to 3 years, and that it's very highlight driven versus sort of 80 minutes of production. And Toby Booth spoke well about it on the Scrum 5 podcast last week, where he said, he wins Players Player of the Season quite a lot because they remember those moments of tries being scored and big carries, but it's not, you don't remember so much about some of the unseen work throughout the season. This season now, he has worked on his defense a lot. He is a much better defender this season. He's become well-rounded on both sides of the ball. He's never going to be a set-piece forward, so there's no point asking him to be that, because that's not what he's going to be. You build the rest of the pack around that. But I think the wider point about Morris, whether you agree or disagree or are not as bothered about him being included or not, is that the national team is ultimately a reward for your club form. And that what does that say to other players in Wales if one of these standout players from the best Welsh club team this season is not being rewarded for working on his game and for being consistently good by getting a call up? He's been overlooked again. Then if you're somebody who might fancy you're in that position as well, do you think actually, well, there's no point me staying in Wales, I'll just go and take a contract elsewhere, then I'll head off to England or France, earn a bit of money, because Gatland doesn't reward form, so what's the point of me hanging around? I think that's an extreme case of somebody leaving, but that's what Gatland has to keep in mind, is that there's no harm in rewarding players, and I'd have hoped he'd have learned his lesson from Josh Navidi, really, from years of top regional performances. Maybe he didn't fancy him. He gets a chance, and he's a Test match player, born to be. So, yeah, that's my tuppence on Morris. It's not so much a shock from whether you think he's like an obvious Test match player or not. It's just a disappointment in that it's not, his form and his work-ons haven't been rewarded, essentially.
I mean, yeah, speaking of form and work-on, so two of the best, so obviously me and Hugh Griffin did a breakdown of stats and all the different players. Two of the best second rows. So when we were looking at in terms of go forward carrying, which I think Gatland says we need, and in terms of their defensive work, the amount of rucks they hit in the game, less so line-out one with the second one, but that's more because of how Scarlet set up their line-out. But James Ratty and Morgan Jones from the Ospreys and Scarlets respectively are far and away ahead of pretty much any of the other locks and thing. And they have not, neither of those have been selected for someone who is playing 4th division Japanese rugby. Now, I made a huge rant on what a despicable human being I think Hill is. You've done an excellent article on the Cardiff Rugby blog for that. But I mean, just speaking of like thinking, well, I've been playing out my skin, and someone who no one other than a couple of guys and they're walking their dogs past the pitch will have seen play, is getting in ahead. And you can say all the things about experience, and it's like, well, if you want an experienced player, he's not experienced at the international level, but Rory Thornton has been around and done it, and he's had a decent season. I wouldn't say he's ripping up trees, but decent, and he's a good line-out operator, which with no Adam Beard, we are missing a quality line-out operator. That's beggars belief. As for the tight heads, the reason we've got 5 is because 3 of them are unavailable for the first game.
Well, there is that, yeah.
Well, then just don't pick one of them. They don't all need to go. I mean, that says to me that when Gatland drops, because he's going to drop 2 from their squad, it's probably going to be a hooker and it's going to be a tight head. And Mark said on the Scott's board, it's probably going to be Harry O'Connor.
Yeah.
Which, is a bit, it reminds me a bit of what happened with Kirby Myhill and the Pivot, because we played this stupid out of test window game, had no fit hookers. So they called him up for one game and dropped him as soon as everyone was fit and available. It's, yeah. Otherwise, yeah. I don't get the point of bringing Liam Williams back.
No, I don't.
Because for me, if you're going to bring someone back from outside, as fantastic a player as Sanjay is, Cam Winner was far and away the best thing about Wales and that Six Nations. He was just excellent. And you're not bringing Liam Williams if you're not going to start him. So what you're saying is, cheers, Cam. We're getting shot, Jacob Beetham coming in. He's Josh Cathaway. They're basically just so other countries don't cap him, I think, as well as Jacob Beetham being seen as the third choice 10 option despite not playing it at all this season. Which, they've gone with physicality on that one, which, all right, fine. Which makes me think at some point he's just going to call Reece Patchell in from the squad just for lols.
He's injured though, isn't he? He's come back early from New Zealand. I don't think he's lasted the whole season out there. They've ended up sending
I'll be honest,
him home.
I do Reece Patchell as my default. He's injured, and then I'm just pleasantly surprised when he turns out for a game. So regarding Ellis Bevan, and it also sort of goes into why we haven't got Cabango, but with Ria Dye, basically Gatland said, ignite for Ellis Bevan for his left foot kicking option. They went, although Thomas would be fit for the Australia team, he wanted players who are going to be fit and available, and that's why Cabango dropped out. So he might have been fit, but basically Joey Wells has only got in because Cabango's injured, which I think is a bit shit, because I do think Keelan Giles has earned that spot outright, because I think he has been excellent this season. And then you're thinking, well, did we really need three out and out fullbacks. Josh Hathaway, who plays wing and fullback, and his preferred position is fullback, and then you've got Dyer and Giles as your only out and out wingers.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
suppose you've got Grady as a wing option as well. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, on Williams, I think I could also see a scenario where he starts on the wing against South Africa.
There's a point. He has
But
played an awful lot of wings. So
just from my point of view, I've never liked him on the wing, particularly at test level. He's not got the out and out pace for me. He's not got the footwork to beat anybody. Particularly his counter attacking ability from fullback is that he can pick a gap and he's quite brave. He'll go through somebody. He's got a nice step sort of from a distance out, but in terms of 2-3 yards beating somebody in a phone box, that's not his game at all. He'll be the more physical option, I guess, coming short off tens, but I'm not having, I don't watch a huge amount of the Japanese league, but the clips that I do see, it's sometimes comical when these like massive like South Africans are like barreling through these small Japanese blokes, and it almost looks like man v boys. So Liam Williams is not going to have had that regular like test his body physicality this season. He even got injured out there. He missed a couple of games in the middle of the season. So to then go into a game against, it might be Springbok C, they're still going to be massive. Let's be fair. So
let's be fair, they've got the options to call up the Sharks and the Lions. At the moment, depending on how Stormers and Bulls do. Bulls probably will go. I think they're going to go to the final anyway, so they probably won't be any of the Bulls players. But the problem is the Sharks have a full.
That's most of the Springboks.
Type 5.
And but even if they pick some lads up from Curry Cup, they're still bloody massive in the Curry Cup. So I mean, they're going to be big. It's going to be a physical game. I question how his body holds up even in that game, to be honest. So yeah, that there are it's just it doesn't seem to be much joined up thinking when he's made the squad. He's picked names and has produced sort of, is it 36 I think players, but there's not a lot of okay, well. I'll pick X amount of centers and then this releases this player to play as a winger, or I'll pick X amount of back rowers and then we'll slot in if there's any extra spaces and tight heads. It's very much like I'll write all my tight heads down and then I'll write all my hookers down, and there's a couple of spaces left, so we'll add some back rowers. You've only got 110. Ben Thomas will do it, and Jacob Beetham, that's fine. It's like it doesn't look like in that selection meeting they've gone right. Let's have X amount of players in this position, X amount of players in this position. It's a haphazard. It's almost like they went to Judgement Day. They had a few beers late on the Saturday. They didn't get up until sort of 2-ish on the Sunday. They've got together at the Vale late on the Sunday night and then gone, oh crap, we need to do this squad for tomorrow, and just chuck some names out there in that sense. But I will just say, like, go back to if he picks a 23 of, and I think the one that I came up with off the top of my head was you could go Gareth Thomas. It starts, let's say, Elliot D to reward his form in the Six Nations, Azarati, Shunza, and Dav Jenkins in the second row. Plumtree, Reffel, Wainwright as a starting pack against Australia. You go Gareth Davis and Costello, Tompkins, Grady, Hathaway, Dyer, and Winnett, with a bench then of Dewi Lake, Domachowski, Dylan Lewis, Ben Carter, second row cover, Jack Morgan, back row cover, Kieran Hardy, Ben Thomas, and then say Keelan Giles as your outside back. That's not a bad 23 to play the Wallabies. That I don't think. Is it good enough to win? Yes, potentially as individuals, they'd have to click as a team because there's quite a lot of new combinations there. But I could get excited about that 23. Will he end up picking that is the problem? No, I could see Hill being involved quite a lot in Australia, and I'm not going to, I've written my piece. I'm not going to get into that because it will be a whole podcast worth of talking about that from me. But I could see Sanjay being involved quite heavily against Australia if he stays fit. Maybe he can bring in somebody like Henry Thomas back into the 23. Who's not particularly young, and I don't know how well he's been doing in the Pro D2, but it's
Is that where he ended up? I
I
don't
think
know. He sort of fell off the radar after
he went to
Montpellier.
Castro briefly, and I think, and yeah,
Because I think he might actually be available for. They're saying he might be available for the
I think
South
so. Yeah,
Africa
because
game
he's
because he's basically
back at the
floating
Scarlets.
around.
Well, he's back at the Scarlets, but I don't think they've announced it yet.
Yeah.
And they've probably had PRB permission to select him, even though he hasn't got the right amount of caps because he's signed already with the Scarlets. So,
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think he yeah, it was a weird medical joker thing where he was just floating medical joker
yeah,
to
he was
medical
bouncing
joker.
around the south of France, which that's quite fun probably for 12 months, but I'm not sure it deserves you then a test call up at the end of it. But yeah, I can that would be in the 23 I could get excited about. I don't hold out much hope that 23 actually appears in Australia, unfortunately.
So I'm not so sure about your second row. Personally, I feel like maybe Chunzo would be a 19 and you'd have Carter starting. Not because I
I
think
could
it's
get on board
inspirational,
with
but I
that.
just think because out and out locks.
Yeah, I have to say I think there's something in Carter. I know he's been up and
I
down
think
a
him
little bit.
bulking up over the summer is
Yeah, I think there's
speaking of bulking up.
something there.
Yeah, sorry. Speaking of bulking up, obviously Alex Mann has been rested because he's basically had a few niggles after playing in a very physical position and being a bit of a wee man. I hope he doesn't mind it. I mean, if you're playing blindside at international level and you're 6 kilos lighter than I am on your listed weight, you probably could do with a summer in the gym.
Yeah, I don't think it does him or Josh Adams any harm at all to stay at home.
So absolutely.
And it's great for Cardiff as well, I think.
I think, can we officially say friend of the pod, Josh Adams? After
Yes, he replied to us on
tweet?
Twitter. Didn't tag him. He just replied to us. So
Yeah.
we're best mates then.
Yeah. So Josh, hey Josh, if you're bored in the summer, feel free to come on the pod. We'd love to chat your rugby story from your days with Worcester and Scarlets Academy before that. Open invite. In other interactions with the squad, hope that Matt Jockey doesn't mind saying he did message pod. Just want to say thank you very much. It means an awful lot to all of us here for your kind words. I won't go into the full details of the messages, but yeah, just hope you guys continue to listen to us, and I hope we continue to be a source of positivity for you all. Any other thoughts on the squad?
No, I don't think so. No, it's like a lot of players who were always going to be there, and I think the only interesting thing will be what he does captaincy wise, probably then, because obviously Dav Jenkins was the captain, but I think he said he'll pick different captains as they go along, type thing. But I
think by the sound of it, this is final auditions for his captain.
Because I think the problem Dav Jenkins has got is that he's not Wales based, and that's probably going to count against him ultimately, that he's not going to be in all training camps all the time versus Jack Morgan or Derry Lake or anybody else he fancies chucking in the mix who are, or like when fit, are going to be there constantly at the Vale, particularly in the Six Nations, for sort of 2.5 months, however long it is. So yeah, be interesting to see whether he named. I think he could just go down the route of naming a leadership group, to be honest, and put in Lake and Morgan and Jenkins. Tompkins probably could slot in there.
Everyone is captain.
Yeah, well,
everyone's captain.
Just put a leadership group at the top, and then picking one match day voice then as you go, and building it up that way, because we don't have any obvious experience, senior players who are captains. Like Alan Wynne, Ken, John Davis, they are obvious captains at the time over the last few years, but we're lacking in that, where we've just skipped a massive generation of players essentially from the golden era to now. There's not many in that middle band who are obvious captain materials. But I wonder if maybe, say, against the Queensland game, a Queensland Reds game, if Ben Thomas might even fancy a little dig at the captaincy there. He's been quite good for us when he's taken the armbands.
Weirdly, the Queensland Red game is probably the one I'm most interested in, because I think that's when you are going to see. I reckon that's probably when you're going to get a Matthias start. You might get an Archie Griffin. I think Evan Lloyd. I've got a feeling. I've just got a feeling in me waters. He's probably assuring to start that game.
Yeah, Ellis Bevan probably fancied that'll be where he.
I could see it being like Ellis Bevan, Ben Thomas. You might have Costello on the bench, sort of thing, and then you might see Jacob Beetham starting either fullback or 12.
No,
I think that's when you're going to get your Hathaway.
That'd be quite an interesting game.
I think Hathaway's going to play in one of the Australia tests off the
Yeah, I
bench.
thought so.
Just getting capped, because obviously a game against club side isn't capped.
Yes, that's true. I imagine he'll pick what is quite an interesting team on that one. But my fear, though, is that they'll lose, and that'll become, it'll be built up into a much bigger thing than it actually is. The result will matter as such in that game, because it'll be young and inexperienced. But if we do end up losing, then that'll be the Wales Online headlines for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. My bigger fear is that someone like a Ben Thomas or Mason Grady gets injured, and then
yes, that would also
we
be
start the season without them.
Yeah,
which, considering how well it's that midfield, like that the Bevan, De Beer, Thomas and Grady midfield started to work really well both sides of the ball, and I'd like that to continue next season. I believe on that's pretty much all of our. I think that's pretty much everything we've got to say.
Yeah, good for this week.
So all that. So before I do the farewells, just remember, if you want 20% off and free shipping on any Manscaped product, to use the code RugbyBalls. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Dan, for joining me. Hopefully, we'll have Carwyn and a special guest of Francisco Isaac, the Rugby World writer, who will sum up his first season as a Cardiff fan. The poor man. That's all from us. Ta-ra.
Thank you for listening to the Cardiff Central podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to us, as it really helps spread the word. You can find us on all the usual social media channels or email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. And remember, whatever the question is, rugby is always the answer.
Sports Social Podcast Network.